Welcome to this brief tutorial on writing a discourse reflection essay for English 1. The first step in writing this reflection is to consider what's the big idea. You can start by reviewing your notes and identifying the key concepts that emerged from the conversation about the text. You'll include these ideas in your introduction. I've created here a model set of notes so that we can see what this looks like. And I've used the Cornell note-taking template to identify the texts, The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats, and The Odyssey by Homer. And I've inserted in the notes the comparison that we made as a class of the falcon to Odysseus. And you'll recall that what we did was look up what a falcon was and what a falcon did and identify those traits on the left-hand side of our T-chart. And then on the right, we asked ourselves, how did Odysseus live up to that definition? How was he like the falcon in some ways? So I've written these notes and I've considered them, and I've come to the conclusion that the key ideas at work here are chaos and directionlessness. Those concepts are on the left-hand side of the table. I've linked those two concepts into statements that are claims that I'm going to develop in my writing. At the bottom of the note-taking sheet, I've identified the claims as, when a person loses his bearings and becomes directionless, chaos ensues. The second claim is, a person who has lost his bearings can cause chaos in others' lives. Your next step is to get back to the evidence. What is the evidence in your notes that supports those ideas, those claims? You want to be mindful again of what is relevant to your big idea. You don't need to include every note you take during the conversation, but you do need to include all of the relevant notes, everything your classmates say that supports your claim. So let's take a look at a draft essay and see what that looks like. Okay, I've used the MLA essay writing template to write this essay. You can see I have a title that speaks to the exact detail in the text that we're talking about. It's Odysseus and the Falcon. I've begun this discourse reflection by identifying the texts under consideration and their authors, followed by the claims in bold. And then I've created the context by including citations from the poem that help the reader understand what's happening in the poem without actually reading it. And I've concluded that first paragraph with the statement, the world is thus engulfed in disorder and violence, and there seems little chance for hope or peace so long as anarchy persists. So now you've got the lay of the land as far as that text. And now I'm starting a new paragraph because I'm beginning to talk about Odysseus and how that relates to him. And you can see in this paragraph that I've used different colors to speak to identify the evidence from different classmates during that conversation. So I begin this paragraph with the statement, we compared this image of the falcon to Odysseus and his broken connection to the being that should be his falconer or trainer, keeper, and guide, Poseidon. And what the students had to say about that is what supports this paragraph. Okay. Towards the end of that paragraph, I've added some more evidence from the text with regard to the releasing of the bag of winds, and the crew basically ignoring Odysseus. So you can see that those ideas are organized, that they're arranged in a way that explains the big idea. I haven't simply copied the notes into the paragraph, but have integrated them into a coherent piece of writing that explains my claim and contextualizes the idea. Okay, my next step, or my next paragraph, is to go further by agreeing or disagreeing. And this is the opportunity to express my point of view by building on what peers have said or moving in a different direction. In this paragraph, you do not need to cite your classmates, but you do need to support your thinking with evidence from the text. So let's have a look. You can see this paragraph begins with me agreeing with my classmates' analysis of the poem and the connection they made between Odysseus and the falcon. But I believe we must also consider that the widening gyre that tears the falcon from the falconer is not in itself the sole source of destruction. Rather, the falcon and the falconer bear some responsibility for the devastation. And in this paragraph, I develop my thinking by explaining how I believe that's the nature of falcons and falconers, to run around destroying stuff in the name of the hunt or desire or whatever it is. And I conclude in bold by saying, just as the nature of the fight and the fighter shape Odysseus, they also shape the falcon and the falconer. It is a part of the nature that undoes them, and it is a part of the nature that restores them. In the end, Odysseus makes peace with himself and the world around him, as perhaps the indignant birds in the dark of Yeats's coming world might, if only because they have survived the chaos to see a new day. So I brought it actually back to the Yeats text. I made an allusion to what's happening when that large beast slouches toward Bethlehem and the birds are trying to find their place, and I've left it there. So you can see that I've closed my essay by stating the significance of my observations. And please note, you don't need to make grandiose statements, but to say how the experience concludes for the characters you're discussing. And that is the conclusion of this tutorial on how to write a discourse reflection essay. Please note that the sample notes that I've just shared with you, along with the model essay, are going to be available to you via the blog and Google Classroom. And of course, see me at any time if you have any questions. Thank you.